Healthy leaders are built in community. The most effective leader development efforts are conducted within a living community of people in which the emerging leaders function and participate. In many traditional systems of theological education, the individual students arrive at the class, sit at their separate desks, listen to the lectures, participate in whatever group tasks are required of them, and then leave and go their own separate ways until the next class time. Whatever relationships and community they do form during their schooling are rarely integrated into the schooling itself. But the best leadership school is a transformational learning community in which all of the participants take responsibility for each other, hold each other accountable, care for each other, pray together, worship and seek God together, work and serve together, struggle together, resolve conflicts, and learn and grow together. So how do we go about creating a community like this? First, those emerging leaders who are being trained must be formed into a community themselves and not be allowed to exist as separate individuals. This is what Jesus did. And it's significant that nowhere in the Gospels do we find Jesus alone with one of his disciples. Even the interactions that appear to have taken place between Jesus and one person were always conducted with others close by. Now, certainly there are clear biblical examples of one-on-one mentoring, such as Moses and Joshua, or Elijah and Elisha. But it appears that Jesus always engaged in building leaders when the whole family was together. In addition, some of the unhealthy dependencies and transferences of dysfunctionalities that we often do see in mentoring relationships would be avoided by a larger community approach to building disciples and leaders. Second, the community of emerging leaders must itself be part of a larger spiritual community, the church, of course. The learning community may be distinct, but it must not be separate from the overall community. The two communities should not compete, but they should have one unified, integrated strategy of leader development. This larger community might be one local church or cluster of churches. And then both the learning community and the larger spiritual community both need to take initiative in building the relationship between them. And it will help in this regard if there is some overlap of direct leadership between the two communities. It'll be particularly effective if the top leader of both is the same person. This will greatly help to create a strong level of ownership of the learning community by the larger spiritual community of the church. And each of these two communities will have different roles. The larger church community will provide many things: overall leadership of the learning community, shared vision, practical provision like shelter, food, clothing. And significantly, when that happens, then the learning community doesn't need to be dependent upon outsiders for funding. And that's a huge problem for many Bible schools and seminaries in the world. But when it's integrated in with the church, then such learning communities can be multiplied almost limitlessly. Also, the bigger church community will provide spiritual care and nurturing. This spiritual care can occur both formally and informally. Some of the formal roles may be pastoral coaches who provide accountability and nurture and encouragement as the participant responds to the work of God in his or her heart. Also, there will be intercessors who pray regularly for all of the participants. There will be ministry mentors who provide examples, practical and experiential guidance, advice, correction, and encouragement as the student grows in understanding of his or her calling and in the competencies necessary to fulfill that calling. There can also be learning coaches who are former participants in their own training, and they can provide encouragement as well as practical help regarding the process. And of course, in the broader church, we have spiritual friends for the participants. These are peers who can give encouragement, accountability, and prayer support. There can be host families who provide homes, clothing, food, and relationships for those who may be coming from other places. And of course, in the broader spiritual community, we have spiritual mothers and fathers, brothers and sisters, friends, role models, mentors, ministry opportunities. There'll be teaching and mentoring. There will be modeling of the various gifts and ministries, sharing of life stories and life examples. Missionaries and traveling ministries will return and share their stories. What a rich environment of learning. There'll be encouragement, oversight, and accountability. There'll be prayer support. So many ministry opportunities and responsibilities, ministry assignments. After the formal learning period is over, and after the formal learning is over, there'll be ongoing mentoring. So there are all of these ways in which the broader spiritual community of the church will deeply interact with the emerging leaders and build their lives. That's the responsibility of the broader community. Then the responsibilities of the learning community itself, the training cohort. They will be praying for the church. They will be accountable to the church. They'll be committed to the church, sharing its burdens. They'll be submitting to the vision of the church. They'll be providing various forms of ministry and service in the church community. They will be examples and mentors to younger members of the church, the next generation. They'll visit the people to build relationships with them, and they'll be always looking for ways to serve, both spiritually and practically. Such a rich environment. They'll lead special combined meetings on a regular basis, and they'll share their own visions with the church so that there is a mutual understanding. And of course, they'll invite counsel and advice from the church, and they'll constantly share their reports on how they're growing with the broader church community. This is so healthy when we build leaders this way. And when we do it this way, we will also avoid the frequent problems associated with re-entry into normal life after the learning experience. For example, after going through an intense learning experience that has lasted for several months or years, participants will frequently experience difficulties in reconnecting with their local spiritual communities. It's not uncommon for them to go into depression, discouragement, confusion, isolation, or other forms of emotional and intellectual disequilibrium after the artificial high of the learning time is over. And this can partly be avoided when they maintain their relationships and responsibilities within their normal spiritual church community throughout the learning experience. In addition, the gap between knowledge and practical ministry that can occur in traditional theological schools will also be avoided. When the emerging leader is placed in a faraway school for training and nurtured in an artificial environment for a long time, he will be too far removed for too long a time from the rugged life and challenges that he's then going to meet in the ministry. When young leaders are educated away from their churches for long periods of time, they're sometimes out of touch with their communities when they return. and their long absence and the new ideas and habits that they have acquired make it difficult for them to minister to their original community and church. In essence, their community has not grown with them, nor they with the community. It's really hard to reconnect. But if emerging leaders maintain their life, relationships, and ministry in the local church while they participate in an intense time of learning, experience, and growth, then they will be equipped to serve that church community much more effectively. And ultimately, by making the learning community an integral part of a larger spiritual community, the participants will experience a more holistic learning and growing experience. This is how healthy leaders are built. Jesus built his leaders in community, but then after he was gone, in the book of Acts, this is how they were built. They had cohorts of emerging leaders integrated, deeply integrated into the life, the experiences, and the relationships of the local churches and clusters of churches. That was how they built leaders, and that is how we must build leaders.